Thank you, Paul. Okay, once we make that decision to make this upward turn from the base of the curve, we can see a long road ahead. But it's different now. In the distance is a shimmering image, almost like a mirage. And as it turns out, there's only one way to get there, one step at a time. We are honored to present to you Fort Lauderdale Summer by Yvonne Guibert. Yvonne has nearly 3 decades of marketing experience in this industry. She's currently serving several industry clients, including WorkComp Central. Over the past year, she's developed a passion for event planning and event marketing. She's been involved in supporting the Comp Laude Gala since 2014, usually in an advisory or behind-the-scenes role. She's on the main stage now, Yvonne Guibert.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce you to a little girl who grew up in Bandera, Texas. It's in the heart of the Texas Hill Country. Here she is, around 10 years old, in Fort Lauderdale when she was visiting her dad during a summer trip. Her mom and dad divorced when she was 4. And this photo was taken in Indiantown at a skydiving meet. Her dad was an experienced skydiver, and he had taught her how to pack his parachute. And he would tell all of his friends, "Look at my daughter. She's packing my parachute." Even she thought he was a little crazy for trusting his 10-year-old daughter with such an important job. But he would say, "She knows what to do, and after all, I taught her how to do it, and I'm a really good teacher." This might have been the girl's first memorable lesson in trust. Her dad was also a pilot, and one day he flew her to the Bahamas. He landed his plane right on the beach, right next to the sparkling turquoise ocean. She was in awe of the natural beauty of the unspoiled beach and the brilliant blue color of the water. While she was enjoying the sand and how it felt between her toes, she was startled when she looked up and suddenly saw the authorities racing towards them. They were yelling and screaming, demanding to know what he had done, why he had landed his plane on that beach. Now, I'm pretty sure they suspected there might be some other special cargo in that plane besides the cute little girl, but her dad was very charming and smart. He calmly explained that I had no idea that it was legal to land my plane on that beach. He said, "My daughter is visiting me from Texas. She lives with her mother, and I don't get to see her very often. I just wanted to show her this beautiful beach." So he went on talking to the authorities, and somehow he made it right with them. They climbed back into the stage. They climbed back into the plane and took off. Just a few minutes later, they landed again, this time at an airstrip in Bimini. He took her to the beachside hotel where they had lunch, and she remembers they made the best tasting cheeseburgers she ever had. Way better than McDonald's or Whataburger, she thought. And over lunch, her dad explained to her, "You should never be afraid to take risks. Otherwise, you're going to miss all the important things life has to offer. You might have to work around some obstacles, but in the end, it's always worth it." Another important lesson. Back in Fort Lauderdale, her dad had a modest house with a huge backyard and giant tall trees. He designed a platform system with a zip line, and she spent many days that summer zipping from tree to tree. It made her feel a lot like Tarzan's Jane, and she might have even practiced the Tarzan call a few times that summer. He also had a sailboat. He'd take her out on the boat, and he'd hand her a mask, snorkel, and fins, and a long water ski rope. She'd jump in the water and trail behind the boat as her dad sailed across the ocean. She loved being in the water and searching for underwater treasures. While her dad didn't have a lot of money, he led a very rich life. He spent his days doing exactly what he loved. And that summer, he treated his little girl to a new adventure every day. The trip lasted only a few short weeks in the summer of 1973, but it would end up shaping her in the most profound ways. The time came when she had to return home. She didn't want to go. She missed her mother and her sister, but she dreaded going home. Her stepfather verbally and sexually abused her. He threatened her, and he warned her not to tell, so she didn't. She never told anyone. She remembers going to sleep with her blue jeans on. She hoped and prayed that he wouldn't come and visit her, but he often did. He would say to her, "You are nothing. Nobody loves you. Your own father abandoned you." And during these dreadful days and nights, when she endured the worst kind of abuse from her stepfather, she would reflect on those days in that summer at Fort Lauderdale with her dad. And she closed her eyes and she focused her mind. And she recalled her dad's proud grin as he bragged about her parachute packing skills. She remembered that beach in the Bahamas, trailing behind the sailboat, and eating that yummy cheeseburger in paradise. And she would say to herself, "This isn't going to last. You can go far away. When you grow up, you can leave and go far away from here. You can even go back to that beach in the Bahamas." These things really happened, and they happened to me. There's a lot more to my story, but I only have a few minutes here. And what I want to share with you today is that although my dad wasn't around much during my childhood, he taught me early on many life lessons. He taught me to be strong and resilient. He taught me to stand up for myself. He showed me how to be brave. And as you can see in that picture where he's holding me as a baby on water skis, I'm pretty happy. As I grew older, I often stood up to my stepfather, and I'd suffer a beating for doing so. I'd look him right in the eye, and I'd challenge him because I knew he was wrong. And I survived. How? I'm not exactly sure how I knew what to do. I don't recall anyone sitting me down and saying, "Now, Yvonne, here's what you're going to do to get through this crap." What I used is a method called visualization. It's a wonderful method to help people cope, heal, and even reach specific goals. After graduating high school, I moved to Tampa to be near my dad. And a couple of years later, my mother died by suicide. I started to suffer panic attacks. And a psychologist coached me on how to use visualization to manage my anxiety. And with his help, I discovered that I already knew how to use these skills. I mastered them as a child. I just had to learn how to apply them to a new threat. Now, over the years, I've learned that the more you talk about and share your story of how somebody hurt you, it diminishes its power that it has over you. And it's okay not to be perfect. So here I stand, perfectly flawed. And I'm full of gratitude because I'm one of the lucky ones. I survived. And I'm on a journey to get back in touch with my 10-year-old self. I think she was a badass. And I hope by sharing my story that I can help someone else be brave and share their story as well. I've met so many survivors of abuse, it's more common than you can imagine. The point is, you never know what is lurking beneath the surface. You don't know what's going on in somebody's life. Maybe we should ask more questions. Maybe we should listen harder. Perhaps we could all be just a little more patient. So as leaders in our industry, what can we do to be more supportive of one another and those that we serve? Our brains never stop learning, and resilience is a learned skill. And I believe it is the most important skill for dealing with hard times. Thank you.